In the modern age, taxes have gained an infamous reputation. Whether you love them or hate them, they've shaped civilizations and are a cornerstone of contemporary life in most countries. But where do taxes come from? How did they evolve from ancient levies on grains to the complicated systems we know today? In this video, we'll answer those questions and more, exploring the origins of taxes and how they have influenced society, from the earliest records on clay tablets to the modern-day tax return. Keep watching to uncover the fascinating evolution of taxes, from ancient levies to modern systems. The beginning of taxes. Taxes, in some form or other, have existed for as long as civilization itself. The first recorded instance of taxation dates back to ancient Mesopotamia in approximately 2500 BCE. Rulers collected levies in the form of goods, such as livestock, crops, and labor, rather than money. A levy is another word for a tax or fee the rulers collected from their people. This early version of taxes supported early governments, military campaigns, and large-scale projects like irrigation systems, much like taxes do today. The ancient Egyptians also had a tax system. Theirs is well documented, luckily for historians. While there were taxes in Mesopotamia recorded on clay tablets, they were not well documented, especially compared to the records the Egyptians left behind. The best reference for ancient taxes we have today comes from the Egyptians. Scribes recorded dues on papyrus scrolls, some of which survived to the modern age, to be deciphered by scholars and historians. They learned that in Egypt, even the Nile's flooding affected taxes. A good flood and a bountiful harvest meant higher taxes, while drought led to a poorer harvest and reduced obligations. Our first well-documented record of taxation is from Egypt, where the pharaoh collected a 20% tax on all grain harvests. This went into building Egypt's impressive grain storage that occasionally saved them from famine and building infrastructure like the pyramids. The story of taxes continued with the Roman Empire, which implemented one of the most sophisticated tax systems of the ancient world. Taxes funded their sprawling empire, from legendary roads to the mighty Roman legions. Roman citizens paid a tributum, while provinces contributed additional revenue. Julius Caesar implemented the first sales tax, but his great-nephew's work, Caesar Augustus's, with taxes, is better known. He instituted a direct income tax, formalized tax collection, and implemented a census that allowed more systematic tax collection. Taxes in the medieval era. In medieval Europe, Roman taxes evolved into feudal dues, and taxation became contentious. The church, the monarch, and perhaps most notably local feudal lords collected taxes. Feudal lords demanded dues from peasants living on their lands in the form of labor, grain, or other resources. This system was known as feudalism and was prevalent throughout much of Europe during the early and middle parts of the medieval period. The taxes the church collected differed from those collected by feudal lords. The church collected a tithe, or a tax equivalent to the first 10% of a person's income, from every Christian. The money was used to maintain the church in all of its activities, including providing services to the poor. The monarch often backed the church's tithe-collecting power. Speaking of monarchs, they were the ultimate authority in the administration of tax laws during this period. They could receive tribute from local lords, and they could also levy taxes directly on their subjects. They were used to fund wars or other royal projects. The monarch's power to tax was nearly absolute, although it was subject to negotiation with nobility and the church. This all changed in 1215. One pivotal moment in the history of taxes was the signing of the Magna Carta in 1215 due to King John's excessive station. It was a crucial instrument of tax reform, although many remember it primarily for its contribution to developing the rule of law. The Magna Carta established principles that limited royal authority and laid the groundwork for modern systems of taxation and governance. The Magna Carta, also known as the Great Charter, also introduced the idea that the king couldn't levy new taxes without the consent of the governed. This revolutionary concept introduced the idea that the citizens' general consent could limit the power to tax. It meant that, even for a king, the power to tax was now limited. In the Islamic world, taxation also plays a key role. Systems like the zakat emphasize social welfare, while other taxes supported public infrastructure and military defense. Zakat was an obligatory tax required of Muslims as one of the 5 pillars of Islam. The zakat is a form of tax levied on 5 unique categories of property: Food grains, fruit, livestock, such as camels, sheep, cattle, and goats, metals like gold and silver, and movable goods. The revenue from the zakat went to various people, including people in need, tax collectors, volunteers in holy war, pilgrims, and more. It is somewhat similar to modern social welfare taxes. The modern era. Fast forward to the 18th century, when taxes sparked revolutions. In colonial America, unfair taxation led to the famous rallying cry, "No taxation without representation." The Boston Tea Party became a defining moment in North American history, showing how taxes could fuel widespread dissent and ultimately lead to the independence of previously colonized people. The American Revolution may be one of history's most famous tax-related events. It's well known that taxes helped spark the revolution. The colonial outrage wasn't just about the burden of paying taxes, but also about the design and execution of the taxes. The colonists believed that taxation without representation was tyranny. Taxation without representation was a way of saying that they were being taxed without their consent because the American population didn't have anyone to represent them in the British government, and they were no longer willing to tolerate taxes imposed without their consent. Thus, the American Revolution was born. Meanwhile, Europe saw reforms introducing income taxes spurred by the costly Napoleonic Wars. It was a time of tremendous social upheaval in Europe. Britain implemented an income tax on wealthier citizens to help recover from the cost of the Napoleonic Wars. That income tax was implemented in 1799. Britain officially established it as a permanent tax in 1842, setting the stage for global tax systems. While Europe was developing its modern tax systems, other regions experienced profound taxation shifts due to colonization and imperial rule. Under British colonial rule, India's tax system became a tool of imperial control, profoundly altering traditional structures. The British imposed systems like the zamindari and rayatwari systems, fundamentally changing how land revenue was collected. The zamindari system placed landowners, zamindars, as intermediaries responsible for collecting taxes from peasants and submitting a fixed amount to the colonial administration. While it ensured steady revenue for the British, it left peasants overburdened as zamindars maximized their profits. The rayatwari system was implemented in southern India. It bypassed intermediaries and taxed individual cultivators, ryots, directly based on the productivity of their land. This system aimed to streamline revenue collection without interference from greedy intermediaries. However, it still left the farmers overburdened and unable to meet tax demands, especially during famines. These taxes funded the British Empire's administration and military efforts, including projects like railroads. However, it also led to widespread policy and economic distribution for the people they colonized and exploited. Colonial taxation in India was exploitative, focusing on funneling resources to the British Empire rather than creating a mutually beneficial relationship. In contrast, another area of the world created a stable and long-standing land tax system, China under the Qing dynasty. Although other dynasties planted the roots of their tax system, the Qing dynasty is where it thrived. The dianshu, land tax, was a primary source of government revenue based on the amount of farmable land that a family owned. Its rates could be adjusted for land fertility and productivity. The Qing dynasty also implemented tax exemptions for land affected by natural disasters like floods or droughts, showing a degree of flexibility uncommon in colonial systems. In this way, the Qing dynasty's tax system was remarkable. However, when the Qing dynasty faced internal strife and external pressure in the 19th century, corruption and inefficiency infected the system. Local tax collectors often overcharged farmers and pocketed the extra, leading to widespread resentment. By the late Qing period, this discontent led to uprisings such as the Taiping Rebellion. Although the Qing dynasty's tax system had many strengths that led to stability and fairness, its weakness to corruption and inefficiency was its downfall. While this is an oversimplification of taxation in China, this brief history shows that although Europe often gets most of the focus when it comes to the history of taxes, many other areas of the world were making advancements as well. As industrialization took hold and democracy expanded worldwide, governments needed more revenue for public services like schools, infrastructure, and healthcare. There was a much higher demand for spending on welfare programs and wars, and citizens generally accepted taxation as legitimate. Income tax systems expanded, and new forms of taxation, like corporate and sales tax, emerged. Tax revenues rose rapidly, averaging around 9% of GDP, global domestic product, by 1900 and 20% by 1950. By 1920, most developed European countries introduced income taxes, and by the 21st century, tax revenues began to peak in developed nations. Denmark's taxes reached as high as 45% of GDP, but alongside thriving taxes rose questions from citizens, many of whom were disenchanted with them and questioned the value of their government spending. Luckily, taxes have decreased since then, although they are higher than in 2010. Nowadays, taxes are more complex than ever. Systems vary widely from country to country, but the core purpose remains the same: funding governments and public services. Technology has transformed tax collection, with digital systems replacing paper forms and automation streamlining the process for individuals and corporations alike. Taxes have become an everyday part of life for citizens of almost every country in the world. Out of the 195 recognized countries, only 17 have no income tax. Despite this progress, debates over taxes continue in many countries. Should certain people have to pay more? If so, who should pay more? How should taxes be spent? Taxes are still an important part of everyday life and government, and these questions are at the heart of modern economics and politics. From their humble origins as simple levies on goods and labor, modern tax systems have become complex. They reflect the needs of modern-day economies, governments, and societal needs, which are much different than when taxes were first implemented. They were once used to fund local projects and wars. Since those days, their purpose has expanded into education, healthcare, and social security. While taxes still fund war, they have much more diverse applications than their origins might suggest. From a modern-day perspective, it is interesting to see how complicated taxes have become as societies have become more complex, with more diverse needs being met by governments worldwide. Taxes may not be everyone's favorite topic, but their story is woven into the fabric of history and modern society. It acts as a reflection of humankind's progress over the last few thousand years. How would you like to get a deeper understanding of history, impress your friends, and predict the future more accurately based on past events? If this sounds like something you might be into, then check out the brand new Captivating History Book Club by clicking the first link in the description. We hope you found this video on taxes and their evolution through history to be captivating. If so, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this. And be sure to grab your free Mythology Bundle ebook while it's still available. All links are in the description.